Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. Hope everyone is doing okay. It is 3:14. Abby Martin will be here at 5 p.m. I may have one more video after this. I wasn't even sure I was going to do this video. I watched this video last night. I was downstairs just randomly talking to my mom. She has this stuff on. And I'm screaming at the video camera. I'm screaming at the camera as it's taking place. And I'm giving a fair warning because the video is somewhat rough to watch. And one of my subscribers, Noble Brown, sent me this video. It was the exact same video I watched the prior night. Let's show the video first. Cops brutalizing a human being. The video that was shown, I think, on the news program didn't have the sound and audio associated with it. Cops, often, when they look bad, when they're brutalizing, beating, injuring, killing, or hurting somebody, and they want to try to show some other side of it, all of a sudden they release the information. Well, in this case, you have a full audio version of it, and it doesn't make it any better. It doesn't make it any better at all. You see the person after the fact cursing and screaming and everything else, but that's because they have beaten the living shit out of a person. Multiple thick neck brutes punching and socking and kicking another human being. No attempt at de-escalation, just brutal terror. Your police force in action. You pay their fucking salaries, and these maniacs are roaming the streets. Let's take a look at it. Again, I give fair warning. We can talk about it after.
Came back to drop her keys off. She has her keys. I grabbed my stuff, and
There's four of us up here. We're good.
My friend is waiting for me downstairs, so she's gonna take me back. See where she stays.
Have a seat right there, buddy. Well, come on, sit back here, all right? I need to sit in the corner. Makes us feel comfortable. For what? Have a seat. Have a seat.
Oh, yeah. You are smart.
Have a seat. Guess what? I ain't gonna ask you again. Have a seat. All the way down. All the way down.
Dude, no. Dude, they told you to sit your ass down. Sit down, bro. Sit down. Sit down. Sit your ass down, motherfucker.
Sit down, bro.
See what happens? See what happens?
Get in there. Get in there. Get his arms back.
I got him.
Got him?
I got him.
Hold on. Watch this arm right here. Get his right arm. Get his right arm.
I got his left.
Okay, I'm on you.
Yeah, I feel
I'm on you. Okay. Hold on.
Gotcha.
I understand that we have a capitalistic system, and in our particular system we have to find ways in which we make a living, meaning we find ways to either we need to pay for our food, clothing, shelter, kids, family, whatever, our lives, the way we make our way in the world. And we're stuck in this thing of trying to find aspects of ourselves that we can leverage in order to make our way in the world. Some people it's art, some people it's the ability to lift things, some people it's the ability to run, other people it's mental energies. And you have another group of people who leverage other things. They have other skills like depravity, unempathy, the ability to injure and hurt, and the ability to do it repeatedly for somebody paying them to do so. In this case, the state. There is something problematic of putting a badge on people and allowing these thugs to roam free of the city like this with a certain amount of authority to beat and kick and injure and steal property, literally on a whim, knowing full well that the moment that they kill you, that oftentimes they're going to get off, unless they kill a banker, in which case they'll probably walk. I mean, they probably wouldn't walk, but under normal circumstances will walk. Do you know this is the same police department that murdered a guy as the guy laid down with his hands behind his head in the hallway? Same police department. And that guy got off. Please tell me this is a problem. These people are maniacs. These people should not be roaming around the streets like this, unhinged in the way that they're unhinged. Any cop that you meet is essentially a hair's width away from murdering or killing somebody or injuring somebody. This is not a bad apple. These people, for the most part, are the norm from the standpoint of cops all throughout the United States. People always say this thing, oh, this is a bad apple, it's a bad apple. This is not a bad apple. It's the way they are. It's the way they're trained. If you're trained in every situation to think that you could possibly die, missing the fact that it's more dangerous being a trash man than it is being a cop. I would have more sympathy for garbage men killing people by accident because they were terrified as opposed to cops. A bunch of thick-necked thugs roaming the streets, injuring human beings. There are ways to deal with issues in this world. There's a such thing as the capacity of de-escalation. If you notice, that wasn't something they tried. It wasn't even talked about. They proceeded to brutally punch him in the face over and over and over and over again. This is the same mentality where they ended up shooting a 12-year-old within 2 seconds of the guy of jumping out of the goddamn car. This is the same mentality where the guy ends up telling somebody to go for their license, then shoots him when he goes for the license. Or shooting the guy in Walmart, shooting the homeless guy that was naked, choking the shit out of the guy in New York. Are you fucking kidding me? This is wholly unacceptable if you're talking about your cops who are supposed to be out there protecting the law. What about this guy's rights? Did this guy lose his rights because he was interacting with a band of maniac thug cops? Wholly unacceptable. And that maniac Gary Kasparov, where you kind of bring up the point of, we have problems with our criminal justice system, calling you a Putin puppet because of it. These thugs are roaming all throughout the United States. They are a hair's width of beating you, kicking you, injuring you, and killing you, knowing full well that if you look like me, they will most likely skate. They will most likely skate. If you're a right-winger, you understand that your notions of the Second Amendment and all this other stuff, if you decided that you were going to have a rebellion, do you know who's coming to your house? Thick-necked maniacs like this. Those are the edifices of state. Those are the edge of the state that you always scream and rail against. Brutalizing and beating the shit out of people like him. Do you understand these maniacs now have access to military equipment that was used in the military coming back here on our soil, in which people like this, who are literally on a hair trigger at any moment to which you would interact with them, now have access to? There are severe problems in the way these people are trained. If they can't deal with issues like this without resorting to brutality and violence like this, then there are severe problems in the way they are trained. This is not just Mesa. This is all across the United States. If you come across a good cop, he is a rare one in the bunch. Cops are trained in this particular capacity. And yes, they will stand by one another with this code of boys in blue and everything else, even over any notion of your rights and your safety and your sanity. Cops are dangerous. They're dramatically dangerous. I would wager that there will be no charges or no responses from this. Do you know that the supervisor in charge, when talking about this, said it looks bad when you look at it on video? Yeah, it looks bad when they're punching the shit out of a person who's not doing anything to them, who's standing with his arms down. He's not doing anything, and your officers are repeatedly punching him in the face over and over again. That is the conduct of officers in this country, in the United States. They like to say that this is not the norm. That is absolutely the norm. I have a friend of the family, a close friend of the family actually. Son comes outside, a bunch of cops are pointing guns at him, 5 cops pointing guns at him. One cop shoots. The other one follows suit. The guy did nothing. He did nothing at all. And then they said, well, I mean, he looked like he moved. They lost that lawsuit. Meaning that the family won the lawsuit. There were no charges brought against the officer. Here's the catch. That officer walked. He walked. Regardless of the lawsuit that was brought against him from the standpoint of civic charges, he lost his fucking son. People like this. These people are maniacs. They need a leash on them when they're going about their affairs. Kamala Harris, in a head case of saying, in an esoteric way, she supports these things, the police cameras, but not necessarily to the degree that she was willing to implement them things herself. We need severe police reform in this country. We have a very violent, horrific culture in the way that we go about this stuff, especially in the way that we believe criminal justice should be handled. We have this weird bias towards force. And I suspect that part of this has to do with the way we look at our military, where we look at anything that takes place as perfectly okay to bash anybody else in the nose. And I suspect that carries on to some degree on how we deal with the citizens here in this country. Not to mention, we have an odd bias towards force as opposed to actually trying to resolve an issue. So from our standpoint, it is perfectly okay to hire more cops, which is essentially just more violence, and to create more prisons, as opposed to actually more schools and the more programs that try to deal with those issues before you get to the point of needing the goddamn cops. I'm not going to rant. This is horrendous. That shouldn't take place. And when they did one of the things that Obama did do that was good, or Eric Holder, was he had an investigation into the two killings when they murdered those kids. One was in Baltimore. I think the other one was in Ohio. And in both cases, they fundamentally showed the same thing. That both of these cases are fundamentally racist and fundamentally corrupt in the way they go about their affairs and the way they go about their policing. Even in the way they go about their sentencing of human beings. Cops act this way. All throughout the country, cops act this way. They act this way in Virginia. They act this way in La Mesa. They act this way in Ohio. They act this way in Baltimore. They act this way all across the country. This is horrendous. If they're acting this way, clearly they need to be retrained. I understand some people would be like, Blue Lives Matter, man. Blue Lives Matter. Blue Lives Matter. Not to me until Black Lives Matter. And until other people's lives matter. And by the way, this goes beyond blacks. Like, people like to bring that identity thing up. More African Americans from a standpoint of percentages, yes. But you understand, we only make up 13% of this country. The majority of the people who are murdered by cops are white. The majority are white. Yes, there may be a larger percentage from the standpoint of blacks. But you are also being murdered and slaughtered by these maniacs. You act as if your skin is some kind of protectant. It is not. If you look at the number of murders from the standpoint of the United States compared to anywhere else in the world, you will be startled by the number of people we kill. We don't even know the actual number of people we kill because cops are not necessarily required to keep those stats, or at the very least keep those stats accurate and publicize those stats. I'm gonna leave it here because I'm gonna rant and rave. This angers me like nobody's business. I could do one of these a day. I remember on one of my Facebook pages one day, I put over 100 images of cops beating, killing, stealing, fundamentally just breaking the law or using their authority in ways that was not necessarily, let's say, designed. This is a problem. And I gotta be honest, I'm not necessarily sure how you corral this particular problem because the society itself doesn't look at corralling this problem from the standpoint of how do we stop people from getting to the point where cops are even needed? Meaning, how do we get to the point where we don't need cops to the degree that we need cops? How do we lower the crime rate? We don't think of it that way. We think it purely from the standpoint of we just need more cops because we have more crime, as opposed to why do we have more crime in the first place? Just hate how we think about these things as a society. It's fucking aggravating. And yeah, I get extremely aggravated when I want to see shit like this. I wanted you and Dora to answer questions. Please read below. What's the question you're asking us, Tune It? How can people still vote for Bernie? People donate to Bernie in a pretense of a fair primary. He said and did nothing to join the DNC lawsuit. He stayed with Democrats and will ask for donations and rig the election again. In 2020, I donated canvas form in 2016, a fan of his policies, not anymore. Tune It, we actually did talk about this. Like, you're asking something very specific on how can someone vote for him. Well, I can vote for him because I look at it as I don't necessarily like what he did from the standpoint of not saying anything, but there's never going to be a situation where I like each and everything that somebody does. And I do somewhat understand the logic that he's working with, even if I don't necessarily like the logic that he's working with. If you notice, Dora took a different perspective on this than me, and Dora is somewhat a little bit more, let's say, out of gasoline. Let's say he's out of gasoline. I'm trying to make a pun on the burn. When Sanders talks about the rights of Palestinians, something in my head lights up. Nobody else talks about it. I like hearing it. When he talks about the Syrian war being illegal and us attacking Yemen as being illegal, something in my head lights up. I like this thing of him bringing in Black Lives Matter, talking about police brutality. I like him bringing in Black Lives Matter. I like him having this conversation talking about getting these people out of prison. I support him because the things that he's talking about are things that I back. That's why. No, I don't necessarily like what took place last year in 2016. But is that enough for me to completely disassociate my support? No. It's not. It is not. Jamal is voting in his own interest. He wants to be robbed by Bernie. Oh, Bob. Bob, that's messed up. Gardner, in other words, let the DNC steal more of your money because you like Sanders' rhetoric. I don't know where you get this thing of Sanders giving money to the DNC. I have no idea where you get that from. You still don't get my question, Jamal. I agree with his policies too. No, Tune It, I get your question. You're trying to say, why am I okay with it? And I'm saying, it's not that I'm okay with it. It's that I take all of it, and on the whole, I support him. So you're trying to find this thing of how do you support him if this is true? And the answer to this is I support him because on the whole of it, there's nobody who I agree with each and everything. On the whole, all in all, I agree with him. I mean, I think all in all, I agree with let's say the average of it all. It's not that I agree with each and everything of them. Jill Stein again, Kalita. I don't know if Jill Stein is running. Jamal, if you don't get it, to have another go, talk with the Becks. Jamal, if you don't get it, go have another talk with the Becks. The Becks are no longer giving interviews. At least they're no longer giving interviews to me. So, Jill Stein has no chance. Stop. X Factor, I don't know if Jill Stein is running. Sanders would tell us to vote for Adam Schiff after. No, he would not. No, man. If Sanders runs and he's cheated again and he doesn't run third party, I'm done. I am giving up fucking broadcasting. I am like, yeah, I'm done. I'm joining the Republican Party and be a monk or something. Voting for Ted Cruz. I don't know. Just losing it. Evan Brown, can we continue the law enforcement conversation? Yes, we can, Evan Brown. I don't know what the conversation is. Cops are maniacs. And I understand to some degree that you know, to every hammer the world looks like a nail. And we use cops in ways that they probably shouldn't be used. But there's no excuse for this. There's zero excuse for this. Everbound, but Tune It 20 is mad about his donations. Tim Flowbug, oh, that's funny. Bernie is not a fighter. I disagree, man. I feel you. It's look, I think sometimes situations. Let me say it this way. I've often found myself on the reverse side of most of the things that I've been in life. It never fails. I've learned that it would show up, and I've just become accustomed to it. That when I take a certain disposition, more likely than not, I'm going to get hit with the other disposition. And I've looked at those things as somewhat learning opportunities because they've helped me to somewhat grow in life. Not to mention they've helped me be better in when I deal with the people around me. When I was with my ex, her and I did not get along, to say the least. And we bumped heads constantly. I'm an Aries moon, she's an Aries sun, Virgo, ascendant, all that other good stuff. And even if you don't believe in astrology, I use that stuff as descriptive because mine is descriptively right. And we bump heads like nobody's business. And what I learned by that, when I got out that relationship, there were certain things that I was good at, certain things I was bad at, certain things I needed to improve on, and to get somewhat of an idea on those things. In the relationship with my wife, I hit my head on many of those things in the opposite. Like there were things that I had a new awareness of or better understanding of just because I was in the opposite area. I'm making this point that not everybody does things right the first time. And the perspective of the individual as they go into a situation oftentimes dictates the way that they're going to behave in those situations. If I am Bernie Sanders, let's say I'm Tyrone Sanders, Bernie Sanders, black son that he didn't necessarily own up to, but I took his last name anyway. If I'm Tyrone Sanders, and as Tyrone Sanders, I'm running in a race, and I believe I have no chance at all. I have zero chance in this race. I'm just doing this because I just want to push the conversation a little further to the left. And somewhere along the way, I'm realizing, holy shit, they're feeling the burn. They're feeling this chocolate thunder. God, yeah, they're feeling it. And I say, all right, let's win this thing. With one constraint. I've already said that when I'm in this race, I am not going to do anything that makes Hillary Clinton lose. And I know this is pretty grandiose because I've elevated myself to the level of the presidency. There are constraints. I guess I'm making this point that there are constraints. And I'm saying this, to me, this is logical as logical could be. And that's what I'm explaining out in the way I understand it, or the way I process it. Those constraints are to some degree real. Now, those are political constraints, yes, but they're constraints nonetheless. There is a different scenario of you running in the situation where you yourself are looking at it as, this is mine to win. I'm not in this as a spoiler. I'm not in this to push the conversation. I'm in this to goddamn win it. That's different. That is a fundamentally different race that a person runs. The perspective of the individual is changed. The perspective of the individual, you can make a case that says the consciousness of the individual gets raised in a scenario into this idea of, this is mine, I'm going to win this. I think those perspectives are somewhat fundamentally different from one another between, I am in this to push it to the left, and I am in it to actually take it. I think those things are different. Jamal wishes he were Tyrone Sanders. No. He wishes he were Sanders. No, Bob. No. Oh, let's see. Oh, God. No, God. Fool me once, shame on the DNC. Fool me twice, shame on Jamal. Oh, God. Got a bunch of skeptics. Jeremy Chase, the data entry system was under complete Democratic control. Then I worked on the campaign and the data entry, it was obvious. Garnome, again, not my place to empathize with Sanders. It is mine. Get in his head, etc. It's my job as a citizen to judge the usefulness of the political tool. Yeah, and for that, I need to understand his motives. I don't if you don't get into the individual's head, there is no way for you to understand what the individual is going to do. It makes no sense. It's like saying, I'm looking at an object. You act like he's purely ballistic. If that's true, if he's purely ballistic, then fair enough. He's just a rock that's going in a particular direction. That's nonsense. Of course you have to understand the actions of the individual. Otherwise, I mean, it doesn't matter. You won't necessarily know what the person's doing. Fool me twice, you won't fool me again, I think. Kalita. That's the Bush thing, right? Fool me once, for shame on me. Fool me twice, and what? Yeah, George Bush, fucking hilarious. Van was for Hillary Clinton. You talking about Van Jones? Yeah, Van Jones for Hillary Clinton. You can't understand his motives. You can understand his motives. He's a human being. Everything you know about Sanders has come through multiple filters. That part's true, and it's been prepackaged. That part is true, but you can look at a consistent history of rhetoric and behavior to get an idea on what the person is trying to go at. Otherwise, then there's no point in politics at all. At that point, you can't believe anything that anybody says, and you can't trust anything that anybody does. I mean, come on, that makes no sense. There's no excuse for Sanders not to be upset that his supporters were cheated and robbed. How do you know he wasn't? That's what I mean. You guys are acting like he's not a person. How do you know he wasn't upset? How do you know he wasn't? Why are you making that assumption? You acting like he's a robot. I can't trust anyone. Hello, jerk. I can't trust anyone. I feel you. Hello, jerk. Look, I will say this, and I will agree with you on this, Garden. I don't see anything wrong with a certain degree of cynicism. I think it jumps the shark magnificently, though, to say that you can't necessarily try to pay attention to what people are thinking or try to at least empathize and understand what people are thinking. Part of the reason we get into these wars is because we don't necessarily try to empathize with the countries we're dealing with. I mean, come on, that makes no sense. In any situation, either politics, people's interactions, you must try to understand what the person is doing and what the person is trying to accomplish. Otherwise, it is impossible to look at politics at all at that point. I mean, come on. You must judge these people by what they do, not by pointless attempts at psychoanalysis. Yes, Garden, but what they do to some degree coordinates to what is in their heads. Both of those things work in tandem with one another. It's not one or the other. It's both. Actually, actions speak louder than words. Melinda Burns. No. You missed what I'm saying. I agree with you that actions are important. I am making the point that it is both. Rhetoric and actions need to line up with one another to give you an idea on whether or not the person is being genuine and earnest. If rhetoric and word don't line up, but you need both. It's not one or the other. What about the BS where the duopoly parachutes groomed candidates into districts where they never lived before? Both the DNC and RNC do it. Look, I think both parties are the problem. And Bob, when I make this case of saying that these guys are trying to board the ship and take over the ship, and it's like, but they're putting their thumb on the scale in all of these districts and they're pre-choosing candidates. How are you taking over the ship when they're pre-choosing candidates? And they still are like, oh, dude, you're being a naysayer and we're going to board the ship and we're going to take it over. It's like, okay. Good luck with that one. Good luck with that one. Tim Flowbug, my hobby is stopping cops from beating innocent people. Good luck with that one. Good luck with that one. And please don't allow yourself to get injured and murdered by these maniacs out there as you try to stop them from beating and killing innocent people. Good luck with that one. Jamal has put the Sanders bib on again. How many hours have we debated this? Progressive candidates winning primaries. Jay Scott. They're winning in some places, but in other places, come on. They have put their thumb on the scale in many of these states. They supported Bob Menendez. Bob Menendez should be in prison right now. I'm white. I have a camera phone. That is not going to protect you, Tim. No, don't get me wrong, Tim. I appreciate you doing that. Just be careful that it's not going to protect you. Your white skin is not a defense for cops who are maniacs. Jay Scott, our revolution, I think, has almost like a 50% win rate in some of these races. So you're right, they are winning. I'm more so talking about federal, the races that are just passed. But yeah, from the standpoint of this kind of groundswell, they are winning. And if I am not mistaken, Justice Democrats, I think 2 of their candidates won in the last elections. Think I'll go watch Tim Black. See you later with Abby. Yeah, I'm about to head out. I need to. It is a good sign. Better win rate than the Greens. Oh, California seems like the neoliberals have taken over the progressives from my perspective. Our revolution is amazing. Nina Turner can very well be Bernie 2020 VP. Who knows? I suspect that Bernie Sanders created our revolution as a separate thing because he didn't necessarily want the actions of our revolutions to be tied to him. Meaning, if you have this feisty organization that can out there hit and create this kind of structure, then whatever it does, it's holding your workable point of view. It can be more feisty without it necessarily being tied and attached to you. That being said, our revolution has taken its own little flack. And Politico has been insane for that. Abby Martin's coming on at 5 o'clock. I'm getting off now because I need to essentially study for that. So I'm going to end this here. Cops are maniacs. And the idea we're giving these guys military equipment is terrifying and startling. What you need to be giving them is training all across the United States in conflict de-escalation, as opposed to the way they go about their affairs. So I'll end it here. You have two ways of dealing with the problem. One way is more effective than the other. I would argue that dealing with the problem from the standpoint of stopping crime before it gets to the point of being crime, and dealing with people's needs before it gets to the point of them being into this kind of criminal enterprise, is a much better option as opposed to just buying more cops and paying for more prisons. And I suspect it would be a hell of a lot cheaper as opposed to paying maniacs like this to roam the streets. I'm curious to see what's going to happen to the La Mesa cops in this situation. There is no situation where the people who do stuff like this should be investigating themselves. That should be something that's taken out from the standpoint of the federal government. And if we're being honest, that wouldn't matter because Jeff Sessions is head of the Justice Department and the federal government at this point. So in either case, these guys would walk, just like they would walk pretty much everywhere else in the country. I'll leave it here. The stories like this aggravate me. But it seems like we're going to be having these battles about Sanders going into 2020. I'm going to make a prediction. I'm writing it down in my notebook. You know when I write stuff down in my notebook, it's like the word of God. Garnome will be making a vote for Sanders. And Bob Ramirez. If you don't vote for Sanders, if you're not feeling the burn, if you're not at election time with a Sanders sticker on you, now I can't see you, so you're probably sitting in your Bernie Sanders underwear, you're not telling me about it. I will buy both of you a drink, and I don't even like the drink. I will buy both of you a drink if by 2020, if Sanders is running, and he wins the primary, I can almost guarantee you that one of those people that's going to the polls with a Bernie Sanders underwear, wearing the underwear because they don't want people to know, and they get in with secret ballot, and Garnome is going to be at the top, and he's going to look down at the thing and he's going to say, Bernie Sanders. And there's going to be a little thing in his heart like the Grinch that sold Christmas, YouTube Bob, where his heart grows and grows and grows. And he's going to walk out there proud that he was able to vote for Bernie Sanders. And he's going to get on the chat that night and he's going to say, ha ha, I voted for Jill Stein. A Corbyn cod piece, actually. Yeah, I like Corbyn also. I like Jeremy Corbyn. Fraud with. Alright, I'm going to end this. We're going to have these battles for Sanders going into 2020, so we'll see. Alright, guys, if you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support the Patreon. Abby Martin is going to be here at 5 p.m. I know this one has been winding and all over the place. The Sanders debates tend to happen on this channel because we have people who are for Sanders and people who are against Sanders. As you know, I tend to be for, even though I have been critical of Sanders on many occasions. And if Bernie Sanders ever says support any other neoliberal Democrat, I will probably punch myself in the face on camera and pass out right here on camera. Just fall up my chair. And that will be pretty much the end of my show. I don't think so. I'd be shocked as shit though if they cheat him again. Oh God. That being said, if they cheat him again though and he decides to run independent, would you guys gain a new respect for him? Like, what do all you haters say? You know what? I dislike that Bernie Sanders when he was running in the Democratic Party, but I thought he had some stones when he ran as an independent when they fucked him over. I don't know. We'll see. All right, Abby Martin here at 5 p.m. and I will see you guys shortly. Thanks, guys. Where's my... There it is.